And it went long. I think it was like 30.
We're good.
Apologize for the technical difficulties. We are up and moving. Okay, so we are at the approval of the minutes. April 28th, 2025, Planning Board regular meeting. We got a motion?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Awesome. All right, moving forward. Number 5, public comments. Individuals are allowed 3 minutes to speak and must only comment on current agenda items. A maximum of 30 minutes is allocated to the public comment period. The time limit may be extended at the discretion of the chairman. Public speaking, again, we will request everybody say their name and their address. We got a long list tonight. All right, Chadwick, you're up, sir.
Good evening, Chad Emery, 953 Eagle Road. I want to thank the planning board members for volunteering your time in Weddington. I think it's a great step in updating the header columns in Appendix 2B and some of the requirements. Ensuring these items are completed before review by this board will help the town as well as developers. I do have a couple of comments on this I would like to share, as well as I've got a copy of it that it could be put into the minutes. The main call out I have is in changing of the wording of what is line 51 and now 27. I firmly believe it should remain as Union County Environmental Health approval of the proposed lots for septic tanks and wells, and add in the equivalent NOI letter reviewed by the county. If you talk to county officials as well as state officials who wrote the wastewater rules, the soils can vary greatly every few feet in Union County. The only way to truly validate the location of the septic fields and size is to have them perk tested. Simple sampling will not guarantee the area will work. County officials and state officials agree that the town has every right to ask for this for approval. If the developer is doing the perk test to validate the area, then it's a simple next step to turn in the paperwork to the county so that Weddington can validate this wet layout. We're requiring the same level of due diligence for stormwater, floodplain, stream buffers, tree surveys, etc. Why should we relax the requirement here? We held this standard with Keystone, and they did all the proper steps and was approved by the town. This is the precedent we need to follow. We also talk about using Randall Arndt's book as a guide to our UDO. He talks about this same thing in chapter 19, that we should have the testing and validation done for septic in the design and approval process. If we relax this step, we open the door to the developer supplying a soil analysis with basic core samples, which they will tell you does not confirm perk test, and draw them out on their layout, only to potentially come back later and realize lots must change and what could lead to impacts on the tree save, stormwater plans, etc. In our current UDO, those changes would not lead to coming back before this board, so we could end up with a project much different in execution than on paper. In addition, as I stated in the workshop, there are 2 other items I'd like to see potentially added. A preliminary landscape plan for entrances and key items like buffer areas. Council often asks for this when they do their approval, and since you have the tree survey already, it would help determine what the neighborhood might look like, and also add a view shed analysis. We have this as required for RCD in Appendix 2A. Staff could work on what this fully entails, but basically an inventory of what the open views look like in its current state, from the road frontage, any open space, water bodies that look into the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. That concludes our public comments for this evening. So now we'll move on to old business. Item A, discussion and possible recommendation of text amendment 2025-4, section D-917E, additional specific requirements for conventional residential development or major subdivisions. Let you take over from here, Greg.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the board. So this is old business for what would be text amendment 2025-4. It effectively restructures a section of our UDO That's section D 917 A through E. So again, section D 917 A through E, and E being a new created format. The purpose of this and the origin of this was talking about buildable versus non-buildable land. This has been analyzed by the subcommittee, and this has actually been a topic that's come before you at last month's agenda. We just had a couple other things going on, and we wanted to revisit this item before making a decision. We also briefly spoke about this at our scheduled workshop last week, which was one week from today, or 1 week back. So what this text amendment would effectively do is it would clarify our requirements for new residential development, differentiating between existing property owners, new developments, and RCD type developments. So our existing D 917A is requirements for all residential developments, including people with existing lots of record, things with topographic challenges, floodplains, etc. If we were to amend this section and put some of the things we're trying to do, it would affect every property owner in Weddington. And through our initial analysis, we didn't want to do that. We wanted our rules to apply just to new subdivisions. So this led to changing some things in additional specific requirements for conservation development. So these are our higher standards for when lots set aside 50% of open space. We slightly tweak these in these modifications. The main thing being open space, which I'll address in a moment. I believe we are not going to move forward with that recommendation. The third is requirements for non-residential development, which obviously comes up very infrequently, but would specify issues for commercial or non-residential development. There's no real change there. Requirements for certain land uses, kind of special exceptions. There's no real change there. But we'd create a D917E, additional specific requirements for conventional development. Effectively, any major subdivision, regardless of its type, would have additional higher standards. And so I see this as a section that we would create, a text amendment in our UDO that we would add these additional requirements, but I do not see this as finalized. I think this is something that we're going to continue to tweak and add specific requirements of based on our experiences. So I do recommend staff approval of this section as it is written and is included in your packet, with one major caveat. So the section D917E are your special requirements for conventional development. They're going to make it so there's more requirements up front for any type of subdivision. But as we discussed in our workshop last week, we would not be amending the open space sections at this time. That just has too large of a consequence, and we want to analyze that further as a board and as staff. So in this D917E section, it references under B, minimum open space, a minimum of 20% of the gross acreage of the tract will be required to be maintained. That should read as 10%, which is our current standard. And then all other references to 15 or 20% also found on the previous page under D917A or D917B, or other sections, those will still read as 10%. So if they say 15 or 20% in your packet, that's what we had originally decided when creating this packet. But for the purpose of tonight's vote, these will be unchanged. So when this goes to the town council in the coming months, this will remain at 10%. And again, I see this because we're not changing the open space, but we intend to do so, that this is just a first step in several iterations of this concept. But again, we're trying to restructure and make it more clear when somebody applies to do work versus somebody who has an existing landowner, what some of their burdens are. And that was under the discussion of, open space and buildable areas. So I think you all are fairly familiar with that, but wanted to rehash all that out for the vote. But available for any questions if you have them.
Awesome. Well said, Greg. I think he summed it up. We're changing 20 to 10. And then I think at the workshop, we felt comfortable moving forward from there. If you want to open it up for discussion, or if you want to make a motion and we move on, I will.
I have one question for clarity. And I agree. We said we were going to take off anything related to changing in open space. Part of this change included a definition
Adjusted yield.
yeah, is that been incorporated, Greg?
Yes.
Okay,
Thought I
Is
saw
that
it
in
at
the
the beginning.
definitions up there? Is that, it's not changed. is it?
It's just appendix 1 definitions.
yeah.
It'll be a new definition added.
Adjusted tract acreage yield means that the total gross tract acreage after excluding the primary conservation areas.
Yes, for clarity, that's still included. All other changes we talked about would still be included in this text amendment and should be included in the public packet.
On the agenda, right after conservation areas, I think we've got some extra lingo in there that shouldn't be in there. Just take a chance to look at that.
Okay.
Looks like tree stuff. But other than that, that was good clarification for you, Bill.
Yep, I think we've pretty much got it. So I'm,
And the only other thing was the open space. There was 3 of them that weren't changing, right?
All open space
Was
that we
staying
had
the way they
referenced
are.
is going to stay the same as it was written. We'll delve into that as a separate.
separate time.
Yeah, I think to Greg's point, there's staff and planning board could look at that a little more thorough as it will make an impact.
With Amanda not being at the workshop, do you have any questions or?
No, I looked over everything. It makes sense. I think my main question, which I think has been answered just with setbacks, that's just the house itself, correct? So it's not like a playset or a shed or whatever. Is that correct?
Yeah, so setbacks are for your primary structure. Typically referenced, if it's talking about setbacks, it's talking about for new construction, which would be your primary structure, your house. Accessory structures do have their own set of setbacks, but even playgrounds, I'm not sure that they're usually defined as a structure under our code. If it's a shed, that's accessory. If it's a house, it's primary. If it's a swing set, we're not going to worry about it.
Cool. Yeah, no, everything else looks makes sense.
All right, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to recommend approval of text amendment 2025-4, section D-917E, additional specific requirements for conventional residential development or major subdivisions.
Are we just doing E?
Pardon me?
Do we have red and strike through and A and B and
And all the associated edits.
No, fair clarification. That's the
Yep.
point.
I would like to make a friendly amendment just to make sure that it's on record that all of the percentages are staying at,
Open
original-
space
the
remain
original-
Unchanged, yeah.
Yep. Including the new open space in section D 917E B, because that's new language that's going to be 10%, correct?
17E what?
917E B, minimum open space.
That'll stay at 10%.
It'll be, I mean, it's new language, so it's,
Yeah.
just for clarification purposes, yes.
I've got a question for clarity here on B1 that Scott was talking about. The second sentence says, not more than 50% of the minimum required area of open space shall be comprised of wetlands, submerged land, steep slopes, floodways, and then it says land under high voltage. But for all except that, the high voltage, won't those fall into a primary conservation area?
This is language from the RCD conservation section. It's identical and kind of copy and pasted over. So I think that's why we want to have a separate amendment just for open space to make sure that our
Okay.
text lines up.
So I'm assuming we got our motion with the added language, and now we're just waiting for a second.
No, I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous here. All right. So Greg, we're moving to B, and I believe we were just pulling that one out of old business, correct?
That was the consensus at the workshop. Staff doesn't recommend making this change just because it's so minor, and just for the point of clarity and for the public, this applies only to commercial uses, of which we have very few in the town of Weddington. So I think we can pause this one. Let's take our time with the focus on the core issues.
So we need a motion to kind of get rid of it, correct?
Is that amended?
Table it.
And then you don't have to give a date.
Yeah, table it. Then
All
after,
right.
I think 90 days just goes away.
Correct. If you were to motion to deny it or not recommend it, it would still go to the town council. So if you wanted to linger a little longer, tabling is the option.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Tabled. I learned something today. All right, moving forward to our big one, new business. A discussion and possible recommendation of text amendment 2025-6 Appendix 2B submittal requirements. I'm going to let Greg take over once again.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. So this is the big one, as noted. This is a complete amendment to Appendix 2B of the Town of Weddington Unified Development Ordinance. This not only modifies key terms and language in that appendix, but by moving things around and restructuring it, actually grouping it into thematic categories, we're effectively completely striking or removing the previous appendix matrix and adding a new inserted matrix, which has 2 columns rather than 3. The basic theme of this change, as drafted by the subcommittee and a lot of hard work over a short period of time, is to clarify our expectations for new development applications moving forward, strengthen those applications and those requirements, and to provide clarity on what type of detail we're looking for in the plan itself. And so it would, rather than use the term sketch plan, which sounds preliminary or that sounds flexible, the board has chosen to use the term schematic plan, an industry term, to note that we're looking for a high level of detail up front. So to be very clear to any applicant or developer or builder who's watching or here today, this does increase the requirements for providing an application to the town of Weddington, should this be recommended by town council. Those strengthened requirements are on the things that have to be on the document itself. I would say the largest change is that a tree inventory is required at the time of review by the planning board. So any future applicant will be expected to have a full tree inventory, including with heritage trees, available for review by the planning board before their recommendation. Some of the other changes are just grouping it into areas like the information or the existing conditions versus the new improvements. So separating what's on the site versus what should be applied for, clarifying things like our infrastructure, the traffic impact analysis is required, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into detail on the matrix itself, but I would note this text amendment again strikes our old matrix and adds a new one. And it actually deletes a column that was the preliminary plat process. That's something that's typically done on a staff level. And so it removes that for consideration here because we want to focus on the schematic plan column of things that the planning board is expecting from an application. I believe our vice chairman has a presentation that can detail some of those themes and some of the things we like to do. We can do that now, or we can wait on that. Rusty.
It's up to you, Rusty.
Well, we have some folks that were not here at the last meeting, so let me quickly go through that.
Yes, sir.
And you have thousands of people watching from home.
Oh, I forgot. Man,
Right.
better call. Good call.
Or at least
Good call.
dozens.
Yeah.
All right, so
We do
this,
pretty well. That's nothing to be too shabby about.
thank you. So at the last workshop, I gave a little presentation on the design process, so everybody can better understand what the design process looks like from an engineering and architectural standpoint. So let's start with conceptual design. Conceptual design is a basic tool. It basically conveys a concept and that's it. There's very little detail. It typically uses the plat or the survey, and basically drawn over the top of that in order to provide some level of detail as to what is being conceived. It's usually used as a tool by the developer or by the engineer, to sell his services to the developer and by the developer to sell his idea to investors. It's used for initial meetings with the authority having jurisdiction, Greg, in order to get input as to what may be required, what special requirements may need to be met. From that, next slide, please. Go into schematic design. It provides preliminary and proposed detail, includes proposed street layout, utility easements, contours, and grading. Next slide. Include lot size, setback lines, stormwater management, access from major streets and developments. Okay. I'm trying to breeze through this pretty fast, so please. It'll include limits of disturbance, erosion control. We're going to touch on that again in just a minute.
I go through it, not in gigantic detail, but I think it's a
Yeah.
good learning process for people, so.
Okay. Erosion control measures, which we'll talk about in just a minute, which are different than stormwater management. Adjacent property owners, including tax map and parcel numbers. All this is information that's gleaned from the county's GIS. It will also include, things like parking, amenities, and impervious surfaces. And impervious surfaces are used to develop the stormwater management. So I've heard a lot of discussion in previous meetings with the planning board and the town council with regards to stormwater management. What you see at a construction site is not stormwater management. That is erosion control. It's a completely separate entity from stormwater management. It's what is happening to contain runoff, silt from the construction pit. Typically, it is inverted at the end of the project to a stormwater management, which is to manage the water, the impervious surfaces on the site, and to collect them and to meter them into the local streams and creeks in order to prevent flooding downstream. So that's the difference. There are two different entities that will manage this during the process. Okay, now let's talk about the design flow. You start with a conceptual design, which we've seen examples of. Schematic begins to elaborate a bit on that and comes with much more detail, but it basically begins to solidify what the design is going to look like. Then you go through design development, and I'll elaborate on the design development process in just a minute. You have 30% design development documents, 60% design development, 90% design development documents. This is what goes to the building permit, goes to NCDEQ, goes to NCDOT. These are the things that have the authority having jurisdiction that are going to give you input. Once those comments have come back from all those things are incorporated into the documents. And you see me says AHJ. That's the authority having jurisdiction. And then those comments are incorporated into the documents, and it becomes construction document. Let's go through the next slide, please. We'll elaborate a little bit more on what happens here. As we said before, concept design. Meetings with the AH, figuring out what is going to be required. Again, this is at the planning level, not the planning board level, not at the town council level. All right, schematic design. This is something I would like to stop for a minute and drive home. the zoning and planning board jurisdiction starts at the schematic level. We're the first hurdle in the process of permitting a project. If it doesn't go past any further in the design process, keep that in mind. It's not going to be a fully vetted set of drawings, but we are strengthening what we require in schematic design and what we require in the initial application that will allow us to better understand and work on the things that we do have authority over. We do not have authority over septic systems and sewer. No authority over roads and road construction. We do have authority over how the utility easements impact our tree ordinances. We do have the ability to look at how easements and utilities impact setback lines. These are the things we do have authority over, and that's why we're trying to strengthen the upfront submission for. Okay, if we move on through the design development process. At 30% DDs, you basically you have a control budget that was set in schematic design, and now the developer is using this as a set that we're going to figure out. Okay, let's update the budget. Let's figure out what materials we're going to be using, what design elements we're using, and move forward. It's kind of a check set. At 60%, you go back and you do that again, and you refine both the budget and the design elements. These are internal for the developer and the design team. At 90%, you say this is as far as we can move in design until we have input from the authorities having jurisdiction. This is the set that goes to the building department, Union County, water and sewer, the NCDOT, DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, for their review and their input. Once those comments have come back, then that becomes construction documents. From those construction documents, a preliminary plat is developed. That preliminary plat, which we've used in the past as a submission tool, is really way far down the line, too far down the line for us to be using as an application tool where we are in the process. So that preliminary plat is in turn given to the town planner, and after construction, a final plat using the as-built surveys is resubmitted to not only to the town planner, but to all the other AHJs for everyone to have a look at it and be sure that what we approved is what we've got. They'll have some minor adjustments. There may be a sewer elevation adjustment or storm sewer elevation adjustment. There may be slight bend in the road that was not calculated originally because you've run into unsuitable soils or a rock or that sort of thing. But these are minor adjustments. Anything major requires a revisit. And those things are required along the way. All right. So one of the things that this does, it standardizes the format. If you ask 25 designers what a sketch plan is, you'll get 25 varied opinions of what a sketch plan looks like. If you ask 25 designers what a schematic drawing is, you'll still get 25 opinions, but the grouping will be much smaller. So what it does is it provides greater detail on stormwater, utilities, water, septic, sewer layout, streets, and amenities. It improves application for us for land use, setback, lot sizes, tree ordinances, and floodplains. Those are the things that we do have authority over to rule upon, and land use plan. So those are the things we're looking to strengthen so that we have a better understanding. From most designers' standpoint, they understand the area, they understand what they're going to have to do, whether it's septic or sewer. They'll understand the stormwater management that they're going to go after. So they'll have enough to give it preliminary design that will give us maybe the line locations of stormwater lines, maybe the locations of the boxes. They won't have the sizes of the lines of the boxes yet, but that comes downstream. So if it's all right, I will open this up. Is there anybody out there who has any questions regarding the design process and how it impacts us?
I've got a quick question. I'm sure we touched on it in our work session. But if you go back to the flow, I think it's 2 slides back. Where is town council? Are they where does town council get involved with?
Town council will rule on the same thing that we're ruling on the same basis. It'll be a schematic design.
Okay.
From a development standpoint, there is no use in proceeding. If it doesn't pass the planning board, it doesn't pass town council, there is no use in proceeding further with the design development because the land use is incorrect.
Well, thank you, Rusty. We sure don't have any questions. Good? Awesome. Thank you for that. Again, I forget sometimes that we're on TV and famous. So after that presentation, with that said, do we want to open up this for some discussion?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may clarify some items of just, I noted in my staff report as many times as schematic plan or preliminary plat was referenced and try to add and remove those. Please keep in mind I may have missed something. If that occurs, we do have time to add that as long as the intent is clear by this board. If the board's clear intent was to remove all references to that item, it can be inferred that that is the document that could go before the town council. So if I missed something, let me know. And then secondly, I just wanted to note that my report at the time of writing this was to hold off for more consideration because this has such a huge impact. After hearing our chairman and vice chairman and the work that we've gone into this, I want to respect this board's decision to move forward with this item. We've spent time talking about it. We've had a workshop on it. I don't think my reservations warrants pausing this legislative action. And in fact, because we have a town council meeting so soon after this, this is not pending a public hearing at the June town council, and actually we go to the July town council, which provides more than adequate amount of time for any participants, opponents, or supporters of this project to have time to look at it and to provide their public comment at that town council meeting. So with that gap in time, my staff recommendation is to approve it as the town planning board recommends, pending any revisions or amendments, which I think it's fair to say there can be some. There were some comments in our emails that talked about some slight tweaks or modifications. If you had those, please state those for the record tonight so that they can be made and the text can be amended as you intend. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. All right. Well, Bill, do you want to lead the way?
Yeah, and I would just suggest, once we get this in place, if it's possible to put another column where we number what those rows are, because as we discuss them, when we were working, we say, well, row 5, row 23. So it's just impacts the format a little bit. So a couple things. One is, and I took some notes from Chad's comments, but when he talked about a landscape plan for entrances and those kinds of things, it's row 26 on my document, but if you come down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, you come down a ways under existing conditions, there's a line there that says, third, location, dimensions, required buffers, and that's not it. Oh, proposed landscape plan for buffers and entrances. So I think that would probably address one of the comments that were made tonight. The big long one where it talks about entrances, schematics that was added,
Yes.
it's 3 below that.
The last one in that proposed site improvement.
Yeah. So that was just a comment. And then I don't know whether, I mean, I can go through these or Chris, Mr. Chairman, you can, just addressing a couple of the emails that were submitted by me and Steve.
I was lacking on printing my emails today. So if you
I got it,
them,
boss.
perfect.
I got you
Let's
covered.
Put that on record.
Okay, I
Please.
had made, we had a line on there. Get the right email. Line 24, which isn't going to help unless you got this version, which I think is in the packet.
It is. It
Mine-
is.
What's the
Yeah.
difference? Or is it
So
just
this is kind of the-
written?
It's
Okay.
Language we're wanting.
yeah.
And
It's
so this
proposing.
is with
This was
the-
our-
okay.
Not.
Yeah,
Okay,
this still shows 3 columns, but it's a document we worked with where we numbered the rows so we could talk about them better.
Yeah.
But
But
line,
gotcha. It was two
it's not
separate things.
in the
line 24 currently says,
That's not.
and this was a combination
Not
of
with
a
rows.
couple, I'm sorry, go ahead.
for those of us that are going off of the packet, we don't have the rows. Just
I was thinking it was still in there.
It is at the very end.
Yeah, I printed out the packet. This
The
is,
green on it, yeah. It's this one?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's okay.
But
We tried to
that's-
correlate which rows were what from
That's
this.
not the proposed.
But that's green. This does not have rows.
okay.
So
I
it might
think-
be a little,
Yeah, just point of clarity, the larger Excel looking document is what the subcommittee provided. What's in the ordinance is how it would be inserted physically into our
Yeah.
UDO. And so that's why the formatting is different.
I'll just, if it's
Perfect.
okay, I'll read what it currently says and what some proposals were. I'll call them tweaks. It said location and dimension of required buffers and minimum building setback lines, berms, natural buffers, etc. And then there was a comment made, basically, we're proposing to change that to say location, dimensions, and delineation of all required buffers, minimum building setbacks, lines, blah, blah, blah. Because that would address a concern. There's another line that says a requirement is all setbacks delineated. So we took that and added that delineated to the other line, combining it, thinking we could just eliminate that row. And that would be on the one you've got, probably right towards the end.
almost, the all setbacks delineated is page before last. It's second from the bottom. We just got final plat checked on it in the new layout.
Right. And this would basically put it on the schematic and the final plat.
Yes.
We already talked about locations and dimensions. In my mind, delineated means more specific. And so we just added that, figuring we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. Another one was Steve sent an email. And I think, Steve, you had 2 things there. One was basically Steve had suggested adding compliance with Appendix 8, Section 58-543.2, maintenance of stormwater facilities to establish escrow account and funding requirements, including a maintenance plan. It says approved by the town. I'm assuming it would be approved, an engineering approved. We currently have in the ordinance 58 .543-2, that process.
That would be
And
for
I'm
final-
assuming-
final plat process.
Yeah.
That would be a final plat.
And, you know, it's in there, but I think it would just be to highlight it more and actually call it out. Is that your thinking,
Right,
Steve?
right, to bring that out, to make sure that we're doing that they're submitting their maintenance plan for their SCMs. It's getting filed with the county as the UDO requires.
And filed with the town so
Right,
that when we get our extra body, we got help with knowing what our O and Ms are and,
So that would be a proposed addition.
but just for final plat stage.
just for final plat
Yeah.
stage, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if everyone,
Do you think we can get that into the preliminary plat so that we have that at that point in time? Because you can have your construction documents. I think it's too early at schematic to have that. But if you have that verbiage at preliminary plat, because at that point in time, you know what's designed and you know what the maintenance requirements are going to be on that at that point in time. Schematic, you may or may not have all the
Yeah,
components in place.
you won't have all the components in place. It's really designed to prevent a C of O prior to all that information. So that's the final
Yeah.
plat.
That,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it
You get
fits at the
you get
final
a
plat.
preliminary plat, now you've got something, an overall plat, and you say, okay, now we'll release this for CO.
At final plat, you'll know the SCM costs. You can calculate the 15%. The fund that's supposed to be out there, you could have them say, look, show me the fund, before I give you a CO. And that's where all that should take place.
He's referring to the sinking fund.
yeah,
Sinking fund,
Yes.
yes.
And then the other part that was confusion was a performance bond that the developer had to put
That's
up to
totally
build.
different.
Yep,
That's
just
different.
making sure it's
Totally
still all
Yeah.
cleaned up at the final plat level.
That's right. The bond is
So-
another section of the
Yep.
UDO. I think we take care of it, no problem.
Yep.
But this would be something before CO that we say, hey, you gotta have this maintenance fund to take care of these SCMs, and you gotta have a maintenance plan that is submitted for the record to the town, to the county. It's supposed to be submitted for record, per the UDO. So you can go in there and look at the maintenance plan, on the deeds, I guess. That's what it requires, and I don't know if that is necessary or something that should be changed in the UDO.
It is a requirement as it exists already, but for clarification, it can be added to the appendix.
Yeah, I have no objection with that even at the final plat stage.
so we'll just add a row. I'll take a shot, or you want to take a shot at,
But the email.
it says
I thought the
compliance
email was pretty good.
compliance with Appendix 8, Section 58-543.2, maintenance of stormwater facilities to establish, this says escrow account, the UDO says sinking fund.
Well, it does say escrow account and it says, has both that termination.
Okay.
Yeah.
And funding requirements, including a maintenance plan. This says approved by the town and recorded with the final plat.
Yep.
Got that, Karen? Okay, so that would be an addition. And then another one Steve had was addressing, that would be row 27, 28, but basically addressing septic comments.
Oh, that was the soil stuff.
Yeah, basically, wording is added, actually, it's following wording from the UDO on page 103 in the UDO.
Oh, that was from Appendix A, I think.
Yeah, Appendix A.
Yeah.
Soil series type as mapped by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in the published soil survey for the county and accompanying data for each soil relating to suitability for construction and unsewered areas for septic suitability.
Right.
So that is, we've had that discussion before. Is that something we have jurisdiction over?
Well, this is the soil suitability,
It's
right.
soil suitability.
not the
but it's-
septic,
I-
really.
I'm reading one here, it says proposed, it says septic suitability data furnished by the appropriate health department or agency.
You're talking about in the new one?
The new one.
It says, doesn't say
Septic
septic
tank.
tank
Septic
suitability.
tank suitability data furnished by the appropriate health department or agency.
Right, so I think that just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I don't think it should be septic tank, because we don't really care about what septic system you're saying, right, that they put in. We care about the soil suitability.
Well, again, soil suitability goes back to the type of system you're putting in and who do we have on staff that can analyze that data. And again, we're at the beginning phase of this. If this gets kicked back by Union County Union County Health Department, then it comes back to it starts over anyway.
Yeah, I think the way we were trying to look at it from Exhibit 2B, and I don't know what the wording would be, is if they've delineated where that's going to be, then, and I'll take a,
The one above it addresses that. It says septic locations of drain fields and repair fields, if applicable.
okay,
So we'll have the location of the septic drain fields.
Right.
And they should be in a suitable soil location.
Well, we don't know what that suitable soil location is. What we do have jurisdiction over is where are you clearing and what trees are you taking out in order to do that? Where we do have jurisdiction is in the tree ordinance.
if,
But our appendix A, what you just wrote, is in the UDO. Clearly,
Right.
I understand that, but what we have in the UDO may or may not be.
okay, well,
Yeah.
that's fair game, but I'm just going off what's in there.
I
I had
think,
a totally different statement where I combined both of those into one and wanted them to state what their plans were at that level.
what you said, Chris, was identification and delineation of proposed septic system, including the locations of drain fields, repair areas, and associated infrastructure, along with documentation of type. And
And again, I was just wording that. That
Yeah.
could be different, but just seeing what it is, knowing what it was to know what it,
because that delineation, yada, 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 is site specific. So it's up to them to do the soil samples and all that. If they're going to delineate where their sites are, and then if they get in there, or if they run into an issue that affects boundaries, dimensions of the proposed, where the structure is going to be, they got to remove different soil, take down different trees. All of that then falls back into our bailiwick. But if they've done their due diligence up front, then their delineated identification and delineation of their proposed septic system, including locations of drain fields, repair areas, and associated infrastructure. If they've done that right, and this is the footprint of it,
that it's
then
the
it's good to
footprint.
go. But if
By
something,
the fact that we have the information we needed,
Right.
it's just that we're only applying it to where we have jurisdiction.
right, so now if it finds out, I say, whoops, that footprint isn't going to work because of whatever reason, we've got to do this or shift over here, then it has to come back to the planning board, correct? Because it's impacting
Yeah, you're going back
elements.
to trees or
Right,
something
right,
that
only,
they,
Right.
I was gonna say, but only if it's impacting something. If it's
Yes,
not
Yeah.
impacting something, then
Right.
they would be able to change that
I mean, I put it
around.
in terms of a footprint,
Right.
but yeah, stuff can go on within there. But if it goes outside of that, it requires a change, that can impact a lot of things.
That would be something I would imagine that someone would bring back to the town planner for determination, is this a
Major or minor.
or
Yeah.
a minor?
and I'm good with supporting our planners.
Yeah. I
Discretion
mean,
on that as
when my
well.
neighborhood was built, and I was talking to the developer recently, he's since moved, but they did all their testing, and then they found out, well, we were going to have this house here, now we're going to move it back a little bit, or the septic was going to be in the front, now it's going to be in the back, but it was still within the parameters of the lot, and the house was within the setbacks. So, yeah, it changed, but
Yeah. And
Well, I
that's
think
okay.
none
They
of
could-
that's,
right,
that's what
but-
I wouldn't
But
call
they
it, you know,
could tweak
yeah.
That's okay,
lot
but
lines
do we
too, as long as they're not,
Pardon?
they could tweak lot lines
Yeah.
in addition.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
minor
but
stuff. and That's,
Unless, right, if it doesn't.
Yeah.
If you're not tweaking anything, if you tweak something and you take down a heritage tree, then that comes back.
well, that, yeah.
Correct.
Right. But if you're just tweaking it and it doesn't affect anybody, then that's just. Really quick, one thing, I think something in Chris's, and I don't know which way we're leaning, but when you said the specific type, I don't know that.
So if, let's just say to educate, you're coming in and do the panel block. The one crew, I can't remember which developer it was, came in, showed details, had the information to inform you on what panel block is. Not that we were voting on it, but
Mhm.
I think it'd be good to know what system they have at this level went to say if they're looking all conventional, great. If you're looking engineered, great. And then that word is,
But since that we don't have any say in that, couldn't they change that along the way?
they could.
So do we really need to?
That's what I'm just asking for. I'm not asking for government approval.
That's just an FYI.
Just give us as much information as you can
Okay.
illustrate. If you can't, then we, defend your
Which
case.
I'm
when you're here.
assuming when they go to delineate their structure, they pretty much know the structure they're planning to do.
Yeah.
We can't say this, that, or whatever. This is just saying. This is
Yeah,
our-
but it lets you know why the size is smaller,
Right.
why it could be bigger versus conventional versus
Right.
engineered.
Correct.
It just
And
lets you
and that
look.
would have to do with the soil analysis, right? So a lot of it would have to do with that.
Correct.
That's another element of it. yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
And there's more to the septic than the soil. I mean,
Right.
bad soil, you might have to muck where all your good fields cut. You need to put good dirt to build a house. So
Right.
there's a lot more to it than they're just doing septic suitability with soil.
Right, it's
But
construction and septic
Correct.
suitability, right?
correct. It is.
But that now, I mean, is that all done? They do that before they come to the planning board? Or do they
No,
do
I
that
think what
after?
we're trying to do is ask and go for, because of how unclear and how everybody's perception of certain things is, we're trying to make a more informed look at what someone's bringing to us that has the expectations of somewhat of us, the community, and asking them earlier to bring a higher level of detail. So yes, we're asking them to put a little bit more effort up front in due diligence money that they're mainly not typically used to doing. But I don't think that we're asking for a grave deal. We can maybe argue some of these, but again, we're probably not getting it right, like we've said. But if we get 90% of this to achieve and then work through some of it to see where we really are hitting or working, but this will require a higher level of detail at the
Yeah,
front
and
end of
and
a
that's what
stage.
My concern was on that, if we, if we say, hey, before you come to the planning board, let's understand what you have out there in the field. What, they're gonna design their system based on that. The septic layout, right, of the community that we're asking for.
Yeah, I'm not even worried about their septic layout. I'd rather them have enough upfront information to know, does their performa work as a whole, instead of let's get in from a concept plan, and then we have the one we recently we went and looked at, and they had cleared everything for the most part, not cleared, let's say scrubbed to do their analysis, and then had to come back, but they had already done all that work on that land. I would rather them know up front from a little bit more higher level, more accurate and proportionate picture, so that when we see, this is a pond corner, and then that pond looks so small, but then it gets bigger. We're just asking for some more info up front to have a better informed process from us. And I think it opens up a level of transparency for what is being presented, easy checklist. We know we can all identify whether it's here, and it gives a higher level look for residents. Because we also have other professionals in the community, whether they come to the planning board or not. I know engineers that live here and construction. So
So in the previous checklist, there was an approval by the Union County Health Department.
yeah, and everybody was hanging their hat on that
Yeah.
part.
And so that would be, really that deals with if it's not sewered, the septic system is suitable for that land that's out there. That's what the health department's going to determine. And they can say, yes, it is suitable. You can install what you want to install. Do we want to have that at the sketch plan level, or is that at a different level?
Schematic plan.
Schematic plan level, sorry.
again, at the schematic plan level, and by having to invest a little bit more in getting to a schematic plan level than they've had to present before, they're going to do their homework more thoroughly. They're going to already have done the soil testing. Chances are very good they will have done their perk testing. They will know whether or not they have a viable system out there before they put it in. That's kind of the reason that.
Well, that's good, but then we should be able to put that in there.
Yeah.
and Shouldn't be a problem.
But then if you're going to go do something engineered or something, you may end up going through the state.
Right.
So again, it's not that it's, I wish it was as black as white as it is. And I mean, I guess it could be, but at this point, we were trying to keep the government agency of what's approved and what's out. Just, it's not in our,
Things
We're
things
not-
change
we're
in
not-
Raleigh every day.
Yeah,
So
it just-
who approves of what
We're not
changes.
allowed to, I don't think, approve or disapprove based upon a septic system.
Right, and I don't think that's what
Neither
we're
is the
doing.
county.
I don't think that's what we're doing. We're just trying to say, hey, you gotta have the right conditions for what you want to install. You have to tell us what those conditions are and that they're right,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
they wouldn't get approval from the state if they didn't have those conditions.
Well,
correct.
I mean, the state has said an engineer can do it. A engineer that is hired by the builder could do it.
Even before
But even
the
if that
state
were-
took over this, like my builder, and of course, my subdivision was built 18 years ago. The builder, because everything was backlogged at the county, they go ahead and paid extra to have an engineer come in,
Wow.
do all this testing, and then present it to the county saying, okay, this is a,
That's exactly how it's going to work.
so
That's exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah.
So, and I don't,
it's just now it's at the state instead of the county.
yeah. I just don't know that I want to get on that part as much as I know they're putting enough involvement. They're going to do soil tests. They're going to do borings. They're going to know up front where this lies and happen. And if they share it with us, great. But I think they're going to have a level of detail that has to get them in the accurate, proportionate, right area.
I think the important thing is that we get whatever we land on, we have that clarity. Like I said, a lot we can't control, some we can because of tangent issues, and that we make that clear. You're still going to have people that are opposed to that or some other element of this saying, well, it's not a complete application. Well, per what we've done here, you may disagree with it, but that is now a complete application.
Can we say on that one, instead of septic tank suitability, septic system suitability, data furnished by the appropriate health department or agency?
I'm good. If that's all they got to do is show a conventional field and change it. I mean, that's why I was asking for more detail. I wanted to see what you were planning to do, not just go give me
Well, I mean, I'm
suitability
fine.
that
I'm good.
says we're good with a conventional. And then it can turn out that they went from 3
Yeah, it
bedrooms to
doesn't work.
5 and
Right,
it
it
didn't
don't
work,
work.
but they
Right.
got the approval on the 3 and says, you know what, we're going to switch it up. I'm
We can add that section in there too. I'm fine with that. I'm just stuck on this septic tank suitability.
Well, I think we would take out the septic tank and the line above that and then put in Chris's new proposal. I think that's what that was.
that's what the goal was. Because I mean,
You want me to
yeah,
read it?
septic tank is the least of our,
Right.
and I mean, I imagine they can send a detail
But
in.
again, this wording's probably been there since
Right.
when you were on the planning board. That's how old it's been. But Chris's proposal was combining these to say
Bill.
identification and delineation of proposed septic system, including locations of drain fields, repair areas, and associated infrastructure, along with documentation of system type. Then it's got in brackets, example, conventional, alternative, engineer.
Again, that can be reworded. That was just a start to,
I think it's a good one.
and let's say this does get recommended. Do you and K-Dub work to make sure our language is right?
It's preferred that it be exactly as you stated. So I know your intention. I'm not misrepresenting your intention.
Man, y'all going to have to increase our pay.
Do you-
Why don't we put this wording in?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then we
we'll
can
have it
always
for there.
have,
If I should make a
okay,
suggestion,
Yes, ma'am.
since we're not going to be calling a public hearing for this in June, it will still be available for discussion at your June planning board meeting. So if you state what you want, we get it drafted, we have KW look at it, and then you can put the final stamp on it to make sure that it's the right intention, like.
I'd
Does that
feel
make
good
sense?
with that.
Yep.
couldn't we, so
So we'll use it to start
we'll
with.
use it to start with.
Yep, let her,
And unless she says, I don't like that, whatever, then we'd have to edit that.
yeah,
And if she's fine
And
with
we
it,
have another opportunity to do
Yeah.
that.
yep, that'd be,
You would have to recommend it twice. You would recommend what you talked about today, and if there's any changes that y'all have, you need to make a recommendation with those changes, and then
Cool.
you still have time.
but if we do that at the next, let's say it's required, we do that at the next planning board meeting, does that still allow then for the council to address it?
Sorry about the timing.
Yeah, the timing.
in July.
What is it, 10 days notice or something?
Yeah, there's plenty of time.
Plenty of time?
Cool.
The
Okay,
July council meeting's not until the 14th, so there's a lot of, there's 3 weeks in, well, there's 2 weeks in between meetings instead of just one.
And then,
Awesome.
and the only reason why I mentioned the soil is because it is mentioned in the UDO in Appendix A, and it is mentioned in the conditional rezoning, D607, the legislative process, steps for legislative decision. At the very end, it says, if unsewered, the suitability of soils for subsurface sewage disposal.
That sounded rough.
It's tough to say that subsurface sewage at the same time.
So, again, I'm not opposed to the soil part. I mean, if we're seeing it, we just, again,
Can I ask what our planners take on what we're talking about is?
absolutely.
So I'll speak technically at first. I think on what we have stated as the intended changes so far is to number it, is to provide one of Steve's changes and to provide one of our chairman's changes roughly. Otherwise, we would keep the language as is. I think of this exercise in general, I feel this is planning board led, and that is the way it should be framed. And by doing so, this is now placing you under a great deal more approval burden, so to speak. You know, when you guys say, I agree with the planner and we feel that this application is complete, I really need you to state that on record when you vote on it so that it has meaning. Unfortunately, statements made by staff no longer have meaning. So you guys are now the gatekeepers of what is complete by doing this. So please accept that burden with respect.
And I was gonna, I appreciate that, but more specifically, what I was asking, the new language that we're talking about, because that hasn't come out of your discussions in the subcommittee. Do you see any issues with the new language that we're looking at, or?
I just want you guys to be very clear. You know, you can ask for what type of septic system, you know, you can ask the applicant to list what type of septic system they're going to do. But you must also understand that if they change that later, that does not invalidate the proposal. That does not invalidate your recommendation. That doesn't invalidate a town council decision. And that does not mean an applicant has to start over. And that's some kind of gotcha.
correct.
Yep,
So
correct.
what you guys are asking for is not necessarily apples to apples on completeness. So we're talking about what you guys want up front and what is deemed complete. You still have to have some subjectivity on what information is thus complete. So you can't just say they listed it, it's good. You have to say they listed it, I reviewed it, and it is good. So talking about things we don't have jurisdiction over, I'd rather you avoid it, but you're allowed to ask for it just for upfront knowledge, but know that that's not going to invalidate or create some kind of gotcha situation for a developer. That is an inappropriate use of this matrix.
That being the case, do we want to change the matrix slightly to have a section that is just an FYI section so that nobody is confused, that the developers know that we are just looking at this just because we want to see it. We don't have any jurisdiction over it, so that a town resident who's looking at the application can't look back and say, well, that's in the matrix, and now it's changed. Would it make sense then to drop that down into a different section that is specifically spelled out that we don't have jurisdiction over?
That's exactly why the first one is worded the way I worded that when I brought it in there. Is that all we're looking for, if applicable, we want to see what the drain fields and the repair fields area is going to look like, and that's only because we need to know where they are and how it impacts the things that we do have jurisdiction over.
I would almost suggest, Scott, that, rather than say it's here as an FYI, I would just say take it out. And then there's nothing to prevent at least this planning board or a future planning board saying, well, what kind of system are you putting in? Well, I'm putting in this or I'm putting in that, but it's not a requirement for the application.
I agree.
Yeah, so I actually tend to agree with that too. And for the reasons why you don't necessarily want to put in the soil stuff, I think applies then to removing the septic, because we don't have jurisdiction. It would be nice if we knew it. It would be nice if we, had the soil information. But at the end of the day, I think that's just going to be confusing to residents who are looking at the approval process.
When we're asking for location delineation, does that imply that the developer is going to have done soil testing and stuff like that in order to delineate?
It's going, again, that's, we're de facto, we're gathering the information, and by de facto, in the submission, we're getting that information, but we're getting it where it's applicable to what we have jurisdiction over.
Right.
Yeah, we want to know the septic location so we know what trees are impacting, not
Correct.
because we care what type.
And this goes back to even if you have a sewer, some point in time, Union County gets the sewer issues worked out here, you're going to want to know what the sewer easement was like.
Sure.
And that for the same exact reasons. Where are those utility lines
Right.
running? Where do you plan to put that in? Do you have a heritage tree in the middle of the excavation?
But they're going to have to, you would expect they will have done, I'll say, soil sampling and some of the front end legwork, and in order to determine
They will,
septic
yeah.
fields, repair
Exactly.
fields, infrastructure. And then, like I said, the only way it would impact us, or it would have to come back if they went outside of that envelope.
Yeah, if they increase it by 10, if they increase the size by 10%, no other trees are impacted from that, nothing would, then that's a minor change.
Well, that's
If they
his
come back-
call.
But if they come back and they double the size
Right.
of both the drain field and the repair field,
Right.
now there's something completely
Yeah,
different.
and I'm moving it from here to here because I'm going to move this house over, they're back, yeah.
Those
So-
those are major changes.
So I think what you're driving at then is not to combine them into Chris's statement, but leaving them separate as the two, because as I'm reading it, it does read, I think, for the purpose of what we can and can't do, I think it reads more clearly with the two than with just the single statement.
Yeah, I mean, for purposes, and this is Rusty's opinion, I would not address this septic and sewer issue from soils or any other standpoint. We have no jurisdiction over it. We have nobody qualified to analyze it.
So
Without-
so-
we can't make a decision for or
Right.
against based upon the septic system.
But we need to know where the drain field and repair fields are if they're using them. And then we would need to have, which this is the second one, we would need to have the health agency
On the septic tank.
data back on those,
Just the tank.
just a tank. And that, but that would all, I mean, that's all available in our purview.
I'm, if y'all want to leave them, again.
I mean, do we need the one in terms of septic tank suitability? Plastic tank, concrete tank, I don't know what kind of tank. Can we take, I'll throw another option out there, Scott. Can we take the line, it's at the top of whatever page it is, top of page 28, and say, identification and delineation of proposed septic system, including locations of drain fields, repair areas, and associated infrastructure, period. We don't talk about what type of system, and we wouldn't have septic tank suitability data furnished by the appropriate health department agency.
Right, and now, Greg, a question for you in the process within Union County. Since we're the first step, would they have already, we understand that like for sewer, they don't issue the letter anymore for proposed sewer. You basically come after you get your system proposed, you stand in line with everybody else. Same thing with the county, with the health department on septic systems.
So there's the prevailing thought of, I'm not going to spend money on engineering until I have entitlements from a town. That's been the general rule of thumb. I'm not going to do the septic analysis other than the basics of knowing that it's suitable, because I need to know if the town's even going to approve this project first, and it's a zoning issue. What we've been telling all applicants is, you need to contact the county as soon as you can, get as far as you can in the process, and provide that information to our elected leadership. So, well, that might not be the industry standard or the standard operating procedure for all towns. That's what we've been asking applicants to do.
And that means expecting them to show up if they got a 60 lot subdivision with 60 individual permits showing all 60 get sewer, septic. Again, that's a big reach.
It's a burden.
Yeah, that's a big reach. And they may get septic and it'd be a whole host of other things that didn't work out for them as to why they couldn't build the neighborhood.
Right.
So that's why, again, trying to ask for detail on what we can do, but
So since y'all did a lot of work on this, I would be inclined to leave it the way that you drafted it without for just those two specific ones, without making changes. And then if we see that we need to tweak it or modify it, but I mean, you obviously had discussions on this prior, and this is what you came up with. So maybe we're to the point where we're overthinking what you guys already did.
Scott, are you saying what's on that chart right now?
I'm saying the two lines, the septic locations of drain fields and repair fields if applicable. And the second line, septic tank suitability data furnished by the appropriate health department or agency.
Okay.
Just leave those the way they are.
And
I mean-
I'm fine with that. At the time we were meeting, we said, well, that's not really where we want to be. So then Chris will say, well, he'd take a shot at making it more better. And I think that's what Chris came up with this proposal.
yeah, I just really don't want them to have to get 60 or however many lots approved.
Is that what the second line
Septic
is
situation,
saying?
yes.
The
Yeah, every
health,
tank
okay,
would have to be.
Well, then pull that out.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Can
proposing.
you read that?
Take out the
again?
second line and then put in the proposal without the last sentence. You basically would take out the second row, and instead of septic, you would say
I don't know where you got that wording from though.
on page 28.
My page 28 starts with septic location of drain.
There you go.
field.
That's it. And what I'm saying is the second row there, we would take out,
Okay.
and then in place of the top row, it would say identification and delineation of proposed septic system, including the locations of drain fields, repair areas, and associated infrastructure.
Yeah, and those are basically, those two, that combines those two, really.
Well, yeah, that was what I'm saying. You take one row out and then you would add this. The only thing I took off Chris's proposal was along with documentation of system type.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah, I like that.
With it in or with it out?
That also
It
flips with,
clears
when you get the system infrastructure as well, because if you do get down the road, we'll get back to sewer. Then if you have infrastructure, you may have a sewer manhole located either on the site or just in the street. So you want to have those things kind of delineated. I'm before that.
Yeah. We've been a
So-
long time on this septic. We cannot beat this dead horse
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
I think that clears both of those out.
Does that sound good with you, Scott?
Yeah, that's fine.
Amanda?
Yeah.
So Bill, I have to say we entered that language in as a start to combine 26, 27, or whatever rows numbers you
It was
are, but I know
27,
those two rows.
28. Yeah, well, basically we're saying, I'm
Yep.
saying this for Karen here. Take out the second row and then change the top row to say, and I'll give you a copy of this, Karen. Identification and delineation of proposed septic system, comma, including the locations of drain fields, comma, repair areas, comma, and associated infrastructure, period.
I would add one thing, location and sizes of drain fields.
Okay, I took that to mean delineation would be.
Okay. Delineate, yeah.
And then the only other question I would have, we don't want to beat this dead horse, is if applicable.
Right.
Yes, because if it's sewer,
Right.
we're on a different,
Yes,
So the first word would be if applicable.
or the last.
Or
or the last word. Yeah.
Or the last word, okay.
We'll let K-Dub clean that part.
So you got that one, Karen?
And then the only thing I would recommend in the future, and this is not for anything of this, that we take some of this soil wordage out of the UDO,
Just make sure you take off the last sentence.
because it's gonna come back to us.
I agree. And there's still, even with this, there's still conflicting
Yeah.
direction to Appendix 2A that we still got to address. But I think the big thing is if we can get this in as fast as possible in front of the council, then it at least gets the clock ticking. And
I think it'll bring a lot of clarity, and to use that cowboy term, peace to the valley.
My question is, so are we eliminating this going to staff beforehand? So it will come directly to planning board, or staff will see it first? Because it looks like it just goes straight to planning board.
no, it still has staff involved to a degree with the upfront, and he has to work with staff. But I think we're trying to,
Unless something changes from what we've discussed here tonight, then we wouldn't need any more input to it.
No, sorry. When somebody applies for something.
Oh, okay.
If somebody applies, does it go straight to planning board without staff seeing it? Because that's what it looks like.
There's
No.
there's
Everything
11
comes through
lengthy
this.
public participation steps, including the community meetings, charrettes, et cetera.
and council.
The zoning administrator has full authority to determine completeness of applications. This shouldn't even be a topic, but because it has been brought up as a political issue, I would rather there be complete consensus of the planning board on what completeness and thoroughness is moving forward.
So it would go to staff, and then essentially every single box would have to have a check in it before planning board would see it.
And if there's a box that you disagree, hey, planner, I was expecting this checkbox. It's on the schematic list and I don't see it. I'm not comfortable with that. You would raise the topic at the planning board meeting, either tabling the item or saying it's not here, I can deny it.
I don't see row 37 on here, and it's a requirement for the schematic.
But it gives 8 people a review of a project rather than just complete authority of one person.
Any further discussions or talking points on this?
I think we've got it. Karen, are you comfortable? You've captured everything?
If I'm not on. I think so.
Awesome. Well, we want to make a motion.
Okay. Scott, you want to do this? I make a motion to recommend approval of the text changes as amended through our discussions. Text Amendment 2025-6, Appendix 2B. Want to repeat
I
that?
just wanted to make sure your language, I'm sorry, this just popped in my head. It ends at infrastructure, right? What you just gave me about the.
Yes.
Sorry,
So
I'm back up a little
it
bit.
is with if
It
applicable.
ends, infrastructure, if applicable. Okay. I just want to make sure that.
Unless the last word is if applicable,
If applicable.
unless you put that in the front.
I put it at the end, I don't know. Yes, I've got your motion. Recommend approval of text.
So we got a motion.
Text amendment 2025-6, appendix 2B, submittal requirements. Changes as discussed, as noted in the minutes of planner. Clerk.
Roughly speaking, it's as presented plus amendments of numbers, an additional column, and the clarifications that we just noted. So
We're there.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Unanimous. All right, that ends the new business. Moving on to update from town planner and report from the May town council meeting.
we all met quite a bit between that council meeting and today. As you're aware, the Weddington Crossing subdivision application was denied. Part of that basis was on land use. Part of that basis and discussion was about clarification or lack thereof of Appendix 2B. So that is what precipitated your following action, your last action for that recommendation. So thank you for doing that and doing that in an expedient manner so that no confusion is had moving forward. Obviously, that was the major topic in town at the time. Just other than that, I would like to say that y'all have been really supportive to me as planner, both personally and professionally. You have literally done some of my job for me or helped me with my job in putting these text amendments together. They were a group effort to lift those and get those to a recommendation. So thank you for your volunteer work and your service to the town of Weddington. I couldn't have done it without you. And I value you all and thank you for letting me serve on your planning board up to this date. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Greg. Move on to board member comments. We'll start it with Bill.
I thought we had a great meeting tonight and breathe in my mind, a big sigh. I mean, on the buildable land, we got clarity to that. There's still a little bit of work, but especially on the Appendix 2B, it took a lot of work and a lot of discussion. I want to thank Rusty for taking the lead on this. He was our lead horse, and I think we've made a major accomplishment here, and I hope it's reflected when this gets to the planning board and when Weddington residents get an understanding of this. I think the important thing residents have to understand is there's going to be a lot more homework and investment going into this application before it even comes to Greg and gets to the planning board. And thanks for all of your help on this, Greg.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'd just like to echo that and say I appreciate the planning board, the back and forth, and also with Greg. Not everything is known. It takes a lot to know a lot of this stuff. So for me, the best way to do it is ask a lot of questions. So if I ask a lot of questions, I apologize, but I just think that's the best way to get to the right answer. So, and I appreciate you guys are pretty good about it.
Well, thank you to Greg and Karen. And thank you, Greg, for having some thick skin. Hanging in there. Appreciate your work and your contribution to the town of Wedding. And thank you to the board members for very good engagement, comments, and Chris and Phil for the additional time put in to help get this thing across the goal line.
I'll echo the same. Greg, Karen, you guys are awesome. Also, Karen and Debbie, who's not here, the food truck nights were fabulous. And thank you for everything that went into that. And Rusty, your little presentation about the development side of it was super helpful to see as well. So I appreciate that. And it's summer break almost. One more week. School.
Can't wait. Anything, Scott?
I'd like to thank town staff. I know you guys do a lot of work, and most of the time it's unseen. So, we do appreciate you. I want to thank our chairman and the board members. It's a lot of work to try to keep things moving forward. I don't know that everybody realizes the pushing and pulling from various entities that we all have to navigate. And I want to thank the residents who have come out to be a part of the meeting, and hope that they continue to come out and be a part of the meeting and be a part of the process and ask questions and make suggestions, because that's again kind of what Steve said. Even though we may have been here a while, there are still things that we don't know, and we don't know things until we don't know them. So I appreciate everybody coming out and being a part of the process.
I'd echo everybody's comments. Appreciate the subcommittee. Prayers and thoughts are still with Nancy. It's her family, as I know she didn't show up, so I'm assuming they're still recovering. Staff, our planner, great work as always. Full support. Thanks for the residents and for coming out and engaging. And with that, we get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
I will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
I was asked